Okay, screw the usual intro. This game is a masterpiece. Like, holy sh**, we'd heard it was good, but goddamn. This is my 2021 Game of the Year, and quite possibly one of my favourite games of all time. Death's Door was originally released for Xbox and PC on July 20th, 2021, with a later release for Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 and 5 on November 23rd, 2021. It came to Game Pass on January 20th, 2022. Developed by Acid Nerve and published by Devolver Digital, this isometric action and adventure indie game garnered some insane critical praise throughout last year, and we couldn't wait to finally try it out for ourselves. We all have limited time before we have to go ourselves, and we certainly don't want to waste it. With that in mind, we're going to let you know if Death's Door is worth your time. First things first, Death's Door can be a pretty challenging game, and it strives to be fair. The whole game is intricately designed to provide you with the tools to succeed, but your own skill will go a long way. If you've been itching for a classic Zelda feel, you'll be happy here. Death's Door is an action-adventure dungeon crawler. You'll need to fight enemies, explore the world, and uncover secrets in order to overcome the challenges you face. At a base level, combat and movement feel great. Combat is a dance between you and your enemies. Patience will save your life, as you have to time your hits and dodges carefully. Your starting weapon will be enough to carry you throughout the game, but there are some hidden weapons to switch things up, and even a weapon to make the game harder if you like pain. Each enemy is fun to fight, and all have well telegraphed attacks. There is only one poorly telegraphed attack in the entire game, and that comes in one of the later boss fights. We usually like to limit our footage to the start of the game to keep spoilers away, but this was a key point of criticism we wanted to highlight. The telegraphing problem here is that the boss looks one way but ends up rolling wherever you are. If you dodge the initial telegraph, you will get hit. Movement feels great. You can't jump, and that fact is key in a variety of puzzles, but you can roll. Rolling allows you to quickly strafe out of the way of attacks and also makes you invincible for a moment. The world also feels extremely organic to explore. Everything loops back around on itself and allows you to make a mental map. The game doesn't have any form of map system, and I'm in the camp that it doesn't really need it. Knowing where to go is fairly straightforward, and the game does a good job of directing you towards the next big area. This is another game that makes use of the bonfire system. When you die, you get sent back to the last door you used. In other games like Hollow Knight, I hate this system, but Death's Door does a great job of making the system work. Doors are always located in central areas, and completing sections loops you back to a main path. If you die, it is very quick to get back to where you were and try again. There will be some opposition in your way, but you don't have to redo everything. There is a small upgrade tree, but nothing too complicated, and you have some great utility spells to help you out on your journey. Each one of these is well implemented and expands the gameplay meaningfully. You have a certain amount of magic points and use them to cast spells. You gain points back when you hit enemies or certain objects. This is great because it keeps the pace of combat up. There is rarely a point in the game where you can sit back and pelt enemies with arrows. Instead, you must juggle your magic and hand combat effectively. Each boss fight is well implemented and caps off each area perfectly. The final boss fight, for the first ending that is one of my favourite boss fights ever. Bosses, and regular enemies for that matter, have this really cool purple cracking effect to show how close you are to killing them. It serves as a great motivator in a tough fight. Finally, let's talk about the health system. This is where the crux of the game's difficulty comes from. You start out with 4 hit points, and you do not naturally regenerate health. If you go through a door, your health and magic will regenerate, but the main way of getting your health back is through these plants. Each one requires a seed to be used, and you do need to look for these seeds. My advice is to hold on to your seeds until you really think you need to use them. You'll always have a decent amount at the ready. With the game's difficulty in mind, I'd like to offer some tips to get you started. First off, don't give up. This is a tough game, but everything is surmountable with what you are given. We finished the game with the base health and magic points, and half of the skill tree filled. It can be done. Dodge rolling is important, but it leaves you vulnerable for a second afterwards. When learning attack patterns, always try to walk out of the way of attacks before dodge rolling. It will save your life, especially later in the game. Don't neglect your skill tree. Those upgrades matter a lot, especially the movement based ones. Take your time with every encounter. I'd spend the first minute of a new encounter just seeing how my enemy moves and attacks. This was great, especially in boss fights where you can die very quickly. Enemies always leave themselves open for at least one counter attack, but always be aware that offensive greed will get you killed. When in a fight, keep your eyes on your crow, not on the enemies. It is much easier to dodge attacks that you can see are directly affecting you, rather than free attacks that might affect you in a moment. That was a lot, but there is so much to talk about here. Every gameplay system folds into the package marvellously. It is honestly a little bewildering that everything was put together so well. The only wish I have for gameplay would be a quick restart option for boss fights. Death's Door is starting strong with a 5 out of 5 for gameplay. Beauty for both the hands and eyes, this game is gorgeous. Each part of the environment is crafted with such attention to detail and the world feels coherent. From the desaturated Reaper's office to the windy Lost Cemetery to the furnace and beyond, there is a distinct feel to every area you will explore. The artistic direction here also works great in tandem with gameplay. Attacks are always distinct from the environment, and it is very easy to discern all the moving pieces in each encounter. Collectibles are also nice and distinct. The only puzzle you'll have to solve is how to reach them. Animations are stellar, and characters ooze personality without any voice acting. It's all in the movements. The world is also creepy when it needs to be. This witch lady makes me very uncomfortable every single time she's on screen, and there is a solid sense of loneliness in the air. Can we also talk about the death screen? It's just so cool. You will die a lot in this game, and seeing this screen always gets me pumped up to rise to the challenge. All of this is backed by a thunderous soundtrack. This is straight fire. Every track knows when to swell up and fits the environment cohesively. The main motif echoes throughout the whole game and comes back in the end to a satisfying conclusion. The overall art direction here is honestly incredible. The world looks, feels and sounds great, and the design choices here are made with confidence. Death's Door locks in a second 5 out of 5 for art direction. I love stories about death. Outer Wilds, The Good Place, Spiritfarer, and now Death's Door. This is a largely simple narrative structure. The world is shrouded in mystery, and as you explore and conquer, you unravel that mystery. The key here is that the mystery is interesting, and every character involved has believable motivations. There is a defined bad guy by the story, but their mindset is completely understandable by the end. Each area also has its own miniature stories. Characters have their own struggles and hopes, and it all comes together to form a cohesive world full of vibrant personalities. This isn't a very long game, but every character makes their mark in their short time in the spotlight. I also really dig the narrative's firm perspective on death, and how it presents those ideas. I'm in my 20s, and have a solid amount of existential anxiety, and the themes present here were conveyed in a way that actually calmed me and helped me ease that anxiety. Everyone has their own perspective on death versus immortality, and the game does a great job at broadening the player's perspective on a very big and very real fear. We're giving Death's Door a 5 out of 5 for its narrative offering. It is very rare that a game's story extends to our real life, and we commend it for that. Nothing's perfect, right? You are getting a full package with Death's Door. There's no DLC, the full game is yours to experience. The main story is meaty and full of additional secrets, and there is a solid post-game for those who want it. If you are a sadist, you can partake in an umbrella run, which makes the game harder by reducing your damage output. You have free save slots to mess around with. Challenge runs can always be kept separate from your main file. The only fallback here are the settings available. You have audio, language, and accessibility settings. There are sliders for music and SFX audio, but that is it. There are also major language options with no major omissions. There aren't any subtitle options, but the subtitles in this game are extremely clear. This is very important as the game contains no voice acting. There are some solid accessibility settings. Screen shake is on a slider and set to the middle by default. There are also toggles for enemy flashes, full screen flashes, and blood. The massive omission here is a complete lack of controller settings. The game controls extremely tightly, but this is a hard game that requires some decent coordination. It would have been nice to be able to remap the controls to suit one's needs. We've seen plenty of other indies do this. The settings that are here are useful, and whilst there are some omissions, they can't detract too much from the sheer scale and polish of the package on offer here. All in all, Death's Door gets a 4 out of 5 for its specs. It took us 6 hours, 55 minutes and 10 seconds to beat the main story of Death's Door. There is more waiting for us, but we're mostly worried about the game's core offerings here. The game never felt like it was wasting my time. There is a difficulty present here, but learning each encounter is simple, and skill takes precedence over luck. Checkpoints are placed appropriately, and it's never too hard to get back to the bit you died on. If you're looking to play through the game in one go, you could easily do that. On the contrary, if you want to break up sessions, you can also easily do that. Each big area is around 2 hours long, or if you want to go shorter, each checkpoint is around 30 minutes apart on average. Fitting the game into your schedule is nice and easy. Hard drive footprint is also minimal, clocking in at bang on 3 GB. Overall, commitment here is great, and we're rounding out Death's Door with a final 5 out of 5. Damn, we just love games about death, don't we? Look, at the end of the day, this game is a masterpiece. It is absolutely worth your time. There were times in my playthrough where I was laughing hard or swearing loudly at the difficulty, and everything wraps up into a fantastic package. Death's Door is the real deal, and you happen to be alive at the same point in time where you can play it. So please, do that. You won't regret it on your deathbed.